people when they walk in that they know that they're cared for, that their children are cared for, and that when they walk in, they are going to be heard and that they are going to be listened to. Because a lot of times there's a miscommunication between their experience and what's going on right now in the school. And if you can make that as welcoming an environment as possible, and that is why your office people are so important, that is why your administration is so important, because every time they walk in, they are gauging it not on the experience they're having now, but the experience they had 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And we can all remember maybe a negative experience that we had, like my science class or whatever it might be. And so you attach that to that trauma, and now you bring that forward, and we try to change that paradigm or those rules that you have.
Thank you. Dr. Fowler, want the question again?
Please.
Okay. What are your ideas about engaging families who are inexperienced with the school system process or have had a negative experience with education?
So I have currently 83 seniors this year that will be graduating that are going to be first-generation graduates in their family. So one of the things that we do is we try to go down and negate all the negative issues that they've had. And dealing with an alternative school, most of my families have had severe negative issues with school. So one of the things I do constantly is I find people in the hallways, and I'll pull them in my office, go, we're calling home right now because that was awesome what you just did, or I just saw your test score and stuff like that. So we celebrate victories a lot. And in that process, when the phone rings and the parent sees it's from the school, in their mind, they automatically have the connotation that this is bad. But I try to get them to understand you can actually get phone calls and communication from school that's positive. And I do home visits. Our staff does home visits. And going back to what Michael was saying, too, the office and that first step into the school and how it looks. So when they come through the first set of our doors and that button's pushed and they're allowed to walk in, I'm telling you, how does it feel? What kind of reception do you have with those people? And then just spending as much time as possible inviting them to the school to let them see the positive things that are taking place, the CTE programs, the good things that are going on, and let them be part of the good things that are happening at the school, because all it takes is one bad thing to move a family away, or one bad teacher or one negative comment. So we really work on that at our school, because it's one of the things that we kind of take pride in. We have a 5-to-1 rule at our school, and if we hear a student saying something negative, we turn and readdress them immediately, and they have to say 5 positive things about that person they were talking negative about. But what it does, it causes students to start really being careful about what they say. It allows parents to say, they'll go home and tell parents, someone told me my hair looked good today, or I had the best shoes in the world and stuff like that. But it's just creating that bridge back to the parent to let them understand we do care about what's said and what's done at our school, and this is the process that we're going through to ensure that this takes place.
Great. And Ms. Johnson, and I will let people know that I was handed a note and I shared it with Ms. Johnson, just asking her to speak directly into her microphone. It's not picking up on 685, so that's what the note was. That. And the question, what are your ideas about engaging families who are inexperienced with participating in the school system or have had negative experiences with education?
That's a great question. One of the activities that I feel like I'm not going to say what you guys said because I don't want to repeat it, but I agree with both of them that it's about building those relationships and having positive relationships with our parents. I think the parents that don't come to school for parent-teacher conferences are the ones that we actually need to be at parent-teacher conferences. And in order to get them in those environments, we have to create an environment in our schools that is positive. So some of the examples in our school district would be like muffins with moms or donuts with dads, having open houses, doing different sport activities, but making them feel comfortable in the building is the first step. Reiterating what you said and having a positive principal, having positive people at your front office that have a smile on their face and they're ready to come in the door. They feel comfortable and wanting to come in there. So some of those would be having activities, and then also just creating an environment that has an open door where they would feel comfortable, because some adults did not have a positive experience when they were going to high school or to the middle school or to elementary school. And so it's trying to recreate the environment now so that they will feel comfortable, so you can have a conversation, sometimes difficult, with the parents at the school level now.
All right, thank you. And this question will be answered first by Dr. Fowler. The city of Ketchikan and the community is divided on COVID protocols. How would you unite our school district to build trust within the community and parents, all while having the students' best interests at heart?
I'm going to plead the fifth on that one, please. So, oh man, we've 2.5 to 3 years of this COVID thing has been upon us, and just like here where I'm from, it's divided on wear a mask, not wear a mask. Take a vaccine, don't take a vaccine. I think really what we have to do is, as educators, we have to take a step back and realize the most important thing that we have right now in front of us is that student in the classroom and how we can impact their lives. And in that process, we need to educate the students, we need to educate the parents. Last Friday, we did a vaccination clinic at our school, and we had several members from the community come in, and students and staff and so forth like that. The misinformation out there is very harmful to the whole process. So I think we've got to do a better job as educators of really relaying the information to the students and to the parents and getting them to understand here's the truth about everything that's taking place. I'm always the first one at my school to take the vaccine. I'm always the first one to use the mask and stuff like that. I really think that, we've, for 3 years now, we've processed this and gone through it, and we need to get back to where, our students are first, and we're focusing on the education part of it again, and just do the best we can with our mitigation plans that are in place, ensuring that everybody, all the stakeholders understand what's expected when they come into your school site.
Thank you. And Ms. Johnson, how will you unite the KGBSD to build trust within the community, parents, all while having the students' best interests at heart?
Well, I think that the point of our, I feel like I'm breathing hard in this, of our mitigation plan is to have in-person learning. And I think if we keep repeating that to the community and keep repeating that to the people that potentially aren't for mitigation, they understand that the point of mitigation is to keep kids in school for in-person learning. And that helped a lot for the divide of the masks versus non-masks. Another thing that I think that our school district did that was brilliant is we had a tiered mitigation plan, so that way everybody was heard. But the problem is that we have stayed at this high level. It looks like we're starting to go down. So we're going to be able to go to the second tier of the mitigation, which is have optional masks. And I think that is a key, that we listen to both parties. We understood that some people were for not having masks, some people were for having masks. So it was a nice way to have a middle ground to keep people in school and in-person learning when cases are high, that we wear masks, but when those start going lower, we're able to have the opportunity for students and teachers to feel like they can choose whether they want to wear a mask or not, and some of them will potentially continue to wear a mask. But that way we were able to appease, I guess, all parties while doing it to where we make sure that the students stay in school for in-person learning.
Thank you. Mr. Robbins?
Last year, my school was out from October 1st to March 1st, and we had to do distance learning for those months. Now, we were pretty creative on how we did distance learning. We did radio shows, and we did lessons on the radio, and we collected packets every day, and I don't want to go back to that. The number one priority is having kids in the classroom. If the biggest impact on student achievement and learning is the teacher, and if you don't have a teacher in front of those students, they are not going to learn as much as if they are not in the classroom. So we have to try to focus on, that has to be our goal, is keeping kids in the classroom, because I know from experience the achievement gap does not get narrower when we don't have a teacher in front of them. It only gets wider. And I think a tiered system works. I think listening to the different stakeholders on what's important and to them and but I think the overall priority has to be keeping kids in school in front of a teacher, because I know that's where learning occurs.
All right, thank you. And this question will be first answered by Ms. Johnson.
no, I think it's, is it me? Yeah, okay.
As a superintendent, how can you improve the culture within a district, stop the infighting, and get all departments and staff to work towards a common goal?
I think if I can figure that out, I would make millions of dollars writing books. Just kidding. You know, I do listen to a lot of podcasts and read a lot about different things that are happening in schools. And one of the biggest hurdles that any principal can do is create or change the culture of a building that has low morale. And now we're at a place where I feel like our district potentially is at that place. And the reason why is because of the isolation. There's a lot of factors that go into that. We have a lot of pain, we have a lot of hurt, and we're learning a new culture. And so my personal goal, which I said earlier, would be that we need to focus on staff morale. Like Michael said, if we have a positive teacher in front of a student, they can do gains of up to 2 years in 1 year. And so it's important that we work on the staff morale and then with that, the student morale, so that when they're in front of our students, they're happy about being there and they're excited about being there, and then learning will happen, which will then change the culture of our environment. So I think I would start with staff and student morale.
Thank you. And Mr. Robbins, you are second. How as a superintendent will you improve the culture within the district, stop the infighting, and get all departments and staff to work towards a common goal?
Well, in my school right now, if you walk in, there's a picture, there's a graphic, and in the center is the student, right? And then around that student is all the people that interact with that student on a daily basis, be it the teacher, custodian, cook, whatever, maintenance people, teacher aides, paraprofessionals, all those people, secretaries, have an influence on student achievement and learning. And I think that the more that you talk about that with the constituencies and the groups that are in the school every day, that has to be our focus. So every time we make a decision, every time we look at something, it has to be student-centered and student-focused. So if you have a fractured group, that tends to unite, right? What's best for the student or the group of students, and that's where I think I would start. And as far as morale, or that is always a difficult thing to do, but to try to continue to stay as positive as you can with your staff, knowing that gains are made every day, that celebrations are made every day, and know that they are making a difference. Because I think with COVID, I think teachers got into, am I really making a difference here? Because, you know, you have some kids in, so you have some kids out, the achievement gap is widening. But that's true. That's not true. They did do things that were positive. They did do things to help student achievement and learning. And so you tried to build off of those.
Thank you. And Dr. Fowler.
As we traveled around the schools today, I'm a big morale person and a culture person to see how everything's going. And I can't remember this last school we went to out here. They had that one, yes. One of the first things that came out is, and they came walking out and they're talking about, you know, their test scores and results and how good they're doing and stuff like that. That's how we start making a change, and that's how we start making a difference. We start seeing some positive increases in test results. We start seeing some positive increases in student attendance and grad rates, and seeing the dropping of the lowering of the number of the dropouts and stuff like that, and celebrating those and being happy and positive in this process together. You know, at my school, when my students are coming in, my kids come in broken, and one of the things that we work on the most is culture. And I'll tell you why it's important to me. In my 9 years at my school, we've averaged one teacher a year leaving our staff because they want to be part of it. They want to be part of the culture. They want to be part of the process. They want to be part of the programs. That speaks for itself in a day and age that teachers are leaving and constantly moving and stuff like that. But we had to work at it, and it was celebrating those victories together, addressing you know, concerns. But the biggest issue that we decided as a group was this: we were going to buy in to everything that we did, not accept, but buy in. And that's big for me with my group. They have to buy into what we're wanting to do at our school and what we want to do in our district. So the culture piece of it is truly just a constant renewal of celebrating victories and doing the things that are right for the staff, and letting them understand that we're going in the direction we need to do. And going back to what Michael said, COVID just flat out sucked the air right out of education. We've got to do a better job of putting the air back in and getting people back on the right track and letting them understand, here's where we're going to go, be part of the process, and buy into what we're going to do to be successful, and watch what happens to your culture, what happens to your morale, because it all starts to grow and improve over time.
All right, thank you. Question number 8 is going to go first to Mr. Robbins. What role do you feel the business community can play in educating the children of Ketchikan, and how will you interface with the business community of Ketchikan?
I think that offering practical experiences for students when they are a part of high school to try to figure out where they want to go is essential. So one of the things that helps students' success is a vision of the future. Like, where do they need to be? Where do I want to be as a student in 3 years, 5 years, 6 years? Now, sometimes for a 14-year-old, that's not easy. And if any of us have had a 14-year-old, we understand that for sure. I've had one of those, and they're not as much fun as you might think sometimes. But working with the business community, that's where they can provide help and show our students what the profession is, how to get in that profession, what are the barriers to entry into that profession, what do they need in order to be successful in that profession. And there's a variety of different businesses in Ketchikan that students will flow to, and reaching out to those people is incredibly important. And I have always found when working in the community, if you go and ask people and you work with them and you sit down with them, they are more than willing to help out students try to achieve those goals and see where they want to be in 2, 3, 5 years. And you never know what interaction is going to make a difference with the kid. They may have a great interaction with the fire department when they were a sophomore in high school, and then they become a firefighter 7 years from then. And that makes a big difference. And I'm sure there's stories throughout this room that you can relate back to, and that's what we would try to do.
Thank you. Dr. Fowler, what role do you feel the business community can play in educating the children of Ketchikan, and how will you interface with the business community?
Well, after visiting the schools today, I was amazed at the number of staff and administrators, and Melissa included in that had been part of the Ketchikan education system and had come back and had taken pride in what was taking place within Ketchikan itself. And then what caught my eye today was the art, and the art that you guys have available in your schools is incredible. But as we drove around today, the tourism industry, the different types of things that Ketchikan has to offer, I think these are all inviting opportunities for these students to come out of high school and find ways that they can give back to the community. And I think it needs to be an integral part of what happens as you guys move forward, because you have some great things to offer from the art aspect of it to the tourism aspect of it. And I'm a volunteer for this one right away. The fishing aspect of it, I'll volunteer for that class, and I'll be more than happy to lead it. But, you know, there's so many things that you offer, and you know, this follows the question we talked about culture. Your culture within Ketchikan is very important. So it's important for these communities and business members to get involved in that, so that the Ketchikan seniors and on down can see how they can give back to the community. And that's a great piece of culture that you guys want to keep. I would say it'd be a very interactive part of everything that we do in our school board meetings and in our schools across the board.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, the business community, how important of a role does it play, and how do you interface with the business community?
Well, the business community in Ketchikan is vital for a lot of our activities. We rely a lot on our activities and use businesses for donations. We have a positive relationship with many businesses in our community, and in order to do that, we have positive relationships with students that work in various businesses. One thing that we do is have a job fair. We have early release for seniors that work in various businesses. But, and you know, another thing would be to bring in financial businesses. I feel like we lack a little bit in that they would come into our buildings and show financial independence and different things, so that we can partner with all of the different businesses to make sure that our kids are successful. There's a lot of different businesses in our community that reach out to our schools and have partnerships with our schools. And we do a really good job of putting up their posters, and I feel like in our community, I've never seen anything like the amount of businesses that participate in multiple facets of our schools. And a lot of those businesses, I feel like I've said businesses 15 times, but those businesses are people from our community. They want to see our kids be successful. They come to our activities. They love to sponsor different kids to participate that may not have the financial means. And we therefore give great students to work for them in the summertime, that they rely on our students to work, especially in tourism, so that they will be successful. So I think our partnership with businesses is positive, and we would continue with that, and we have great working relationships with a variety of businesses in Ketchikan.
And thank you. Question number 9 goes first to Dr. Fowler. Give us your definition of cultural responsiveness, and have you utilized it within your current or past positions?
Cultural responsiveness is just being aware of the different cultures that might be affiliated to your school district. I was impressed today at the high school when they talked about the foreign language aspect of the 3 languages that are being taught, and you can actually take a 2-year block and let that replace your foreign language for your time at your school. But to me, it's being aware of what's going on around you. So in my school district right now, I'm 87% Hispanic. So I've really got to dig into what the Hispanic population brings to my school and what needs to be represented in my school. So during Hispanic month and different times in the course of the year, we spend a lot of time focusing on the culture, what it has done to impact our school, what it's done to impact our community, our state, and how it's impacted the history across the board. We spend a lot of time, I won't tell you how, but during Cinco de Mayo, we have a great week. We eat a lot of food. we have lots of festivities and stuff at our school. But again, it's just going back and be aware of the cultures that are represented and the impact that they have on your school itself.
All right, thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Do you mind repeating the question?
I would be happy to. Give us your definition of cultural responsiveness, and how have you utilized it within your current or past positions?
Cultural responsiveness is understanding that your actions determine how other people feel within their culture. I feel like we do a really good job of celebrating the various ethnic cultures that we have in our community, the Tlingit and the Tsimshian and the Haida, and then also I feel that we do an okay job with our Filipino population. I feel like that's something that we could improve in our district. It's 15% of our overall population. I feel like we can improve that. So 50% of our students are of a minority, and I feel like we do an excellent job of supporting them using our different organizations that we have in Ketchikan, using the Ketchikan Indian community, using the Saxman IRA, having different activities for the Filipino population. We had a celebration this year, and I think it's celebrating the variety of cultures that we have within our district is cultural awareness, but then also understanding that every single person has a culture. I think a lot of the times we have students that feel like they may not be represented because they are part of a certain population where they may not know what their culture is, and I think that it's important for our schools to make sure that all students know what their ethnic culture is and therefore celebrate it and do a better job of celebrating all of our cultures that we provide in our district.
Thank you. And Mr. Robbins?
I think that anytime you have culture, culture is connectedness. How do you connect the culture in which students are from and celebrate that in the school? Because the more connected students are to school and the culture that they live in, and the more culture that they have and represented in your school, the more connected they will be. And you have to talk to the variety of different groups that exist within the school, not only the students, but the leaders of those groups, to understand how you can make school more relatable, lower the barriers to entry for students so that they feel like that they're connected to school. And when you celebrate culture, students feel more connected to your school, and you celebrate that, and that's where your student achievement and learning comes in, right? Because if they don't feel connected, if they don't feel like they're a part of the school community, there's less of a chance that they're going to participate within that school structure. And so you don't want to try to alienate those groups. You want to try to bring those in so that they feel like they're just as part of the school as anybody else does. And so that those connections then build on, and then you can make those academic growth ideas or academic growth that you need with students because they do feel connected.
All right, thank you. And our 10th question will go first to Ms. Johnson. Presenting information that could be perceived as highly charged to a variety of stakeholder groups is a big part of a superintendent's job. Can you give us an example of how you may have encountered opposition to what you're saying and how you deal with it?
It's a great question. I think that's probably 90% of this job. It's presenting information that potentially people may not like. I think it's understanding that people all have a voice and not taking it personally. I always use the analogy that sometimes my younger child, she'll watch the board meetings and she'll come home and she'll say, "Holy moly, that was really tough on you." And I said, I don't take it personally because they're advocating for their kids. They're advocating for what they want, and I think that's what our system is designed for. I feel like people need to have a voice, and then we need to listen to the voices and our constituents, and then make the best decision for our students. Sometimes when you make a decision that you feel is the best for the students, there are groups of people that think differently, and you have to listen to their differences and then also explain to them. One thing that I try to do at least school board meetings is if I have some parents that are very frustrated, most of them I personally know, so I usually call them and talk to them and have a discussion with them and explain why we came up with that solution or why we came up with that idea, and that's kind of what we're doing, and they tell me their opinion, and sometimes we potentially could change, or they could change your mind on what you're thinking, and they give you a new perspective. So I think it's just having those conversations, difficult conversations with each individual person so that they can feel heard, and then making a decision that you feel is best for students to keep them in school learning in person. So.
All right, thank you. Mr. Robbins, presenting information that could be perceived as highly charged to a variety of stakeholder groups is a huge part of a superintendent's job. Can you give us an example of how you have encountered opposition and how you dealt with it?
One of the board goals is transparency. And I think in any decision that you make, transparency is essential for people to see how the decision was made, why the decision was made, and they may not all agree with that decision. And in fact, a lot of times what happens is 51% of you will agree with my decision, and then another 51% will agree with the decision that's completely different. And so you're always going to have changing constituencies depending on what the issue is. But the important thing is to be transparent, to be honest, to be trustworthy, and to listen to all variety of different groups, because those decisions that are made are never easy. And if they're made with the best interest of the student in mind, then, and it's discussed and it's transparent, I've come to find out that people aren't going to agree with you. I mean, I could barely get everybody to agree that that's blue over there, much less a decision that has to be made on COVID or English scores or something like that. So you just have to listen. You have to talk to people. You have to communicate. You have to build relationships. And when you do that, those decisions, they may not like, but they'll understand, and you move forward.
Great. Dr. Fowler, would you like it repeated?
I'm good, thank you, sir.
All right.
I think being in a superintendent's position and being in positions of leadership, you learn a lot about the groups that you deal with on a constant basis, and you know a lot of times before the information even comes out what hot spots you're going to have. I'm a firm believer in the meeting before the meeting. I know what people I need to go talk to. I know what things need to be said. I know the leaders of different groups that need to, have a sit down with me and have a one-on-one. So I try to sit down with them as much as possible. And out of this last 3 years, every one of us in this room can talk about the COVID issue, and every one of us have a little different view or an idea of what's going on. So it's really taught me over the last 3 years in my position to really spend some time in the meeting before the meeting and going out and finding those people and trying to address the concerns before we get into a large group a setting where, the school board's talking and I'm talking and so forth like that. So that's what I've learned to do, and that's one of the processes that I do a lot. So I will be in houses, I will be in businesses, I will be with group leaders, and we will do a lot of before meeting talks so that when we walk into the meeting, I have a pretty good idea of how everything should go.
Thank you very much. Next question, first to Mr. Robbins. We are all individuals, and thus students need to be challenged where they are while empowering them with self-efficacy. As superintendent, how do you ensure each child is challenged in all aspects of their education while maintaining an inclusive and supportive system for all?
I think that when you make decisions based on what's best for that individual student, that's the starting point, right? So when I was in the Syracuse City School District, we created a program for students who were entering college AP classes, right? Because if you're going to have MTSS, for example, for students who are struggling, you also have to have support for students who are trying to achieve something that they may have never achieved before. And so you have to support the kids who are not only who need help at that level, but also maybe somebody who needs help when they're taking their first college class. And a lot of kids that we had struggled just getting through the barriers of filling out an application or filling out the paperwork that they need. So that's how you support all of kids. Just because a kid's doing very well doesn't mean that that kid can't be pushed. And it doesn't mean that also the kids who are struggling can't be pushed either if you have the right structures in place, if you have the right work scaffolded, if you have the right intervention strategies being used. You've built those relationships, the kids can take academic risks, and if they fail, they're still going to be okay, that they're still going to survive, and that they're still going to move forward. And that's, once again, it goes back to, do they have that caring adult? Have we made decisions what's best for that individual student? Because that individual student is different. No matter, you can't group all of those ones in together because everybody has a different experience, everybody has a different background, everybody has a different level of education, reading level, math level, and if you make those decisions what's based on that individual student, and that's a lot of work, but at the end it pays off for that kid, and that's what's most important, is that individual kid.
Thank you. Dr. Fowler.
Mr. President, I'm going to ask you to read that question one more time, please.
We are all individuals, thus students need to be challenged where they are while empowering them with self-efficacy. As superintendent, how do you ensure that each child is challenged in all aspects of their education while maintaining an inclusive and supportive system for all?
Man, who wrote this question? I need to know right now so we can talk afterwards. If you look at your strategic plan, I think it's number 3 on your plan, it talks about trust. And I think everything has to start with trust as far as, what I believe that the school system can bring to the table and what the leadership and the teachers can bring to the table. And I think for myself, one of the things that we really work on at our school is walking in, and one of the sayings that we have on our wall at our school is they don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. And I really think that's a big issue for us at our school, is letting them understand we're willing to go the extra mile with you. We're willing to do the things that we need to do to challenge you. And like I told you earlier, my kids are coming in at a 3.2, 3.4 level when they walk in the doors. And so I celebrate with them, the teachers celebrate with them, everybody celebrates with them when they get the 6 out of 15 or 20 on the test, because in their mind it's like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened in my life. No, it's not, because next time we're going to get 7, the next time we're going to get 8, the next time we're going to get 9. But once they start to feel that ability to be successful, and once you get that one first big victory with a student, I really feel like you have them forever, because they know that you've taken your time, you truly care about what's going on with them, and you've gone through the process with them to let them understand, even though this may not be in our traditional education setting, acceptable, it is acceptable, because we're going to use this as a benchmark to get better from this point forward. So it's everybody, it truly goes back to the Texas community, and I believe that with everybody being positive and everybody staying focused on what needs to be done, this is how we're going to move this student forward.
Ms. Johnson, would you like me to repeat it?
Please.
We are all individuals. Thus, students need to be challenged where they are while empowering them with self-efficacy. As superintendent, how do you ensure each child is challenged in all aspects of their education while maintaining an inclusive and supportive system for all?
That's a really loaded question, and I like it. One thing I think is important is that we hire the most amazing teachers that we can find. I think that's where we start. I also think that we focus on data-driven instruction so that we can see where a student is and where they need to be pushed. This question reminds me a lot of special education, having individual education plans. And I feel like teachers do that every single day when they have a group of kids in their class. They may not call it an individual education plan, but they do that in their classes to make sure that all of the students are where they need to be, but then they're also pushed academically so that they can achieve more than they're expecting to. So I personally think there's data-driven instruction, and then also hiring the best teachers that we can find. So that way when we're teaching our teachers, that they're using data to make sure that all of the students are being pushed academically.
Thank you. Our next question is first to Dr. Fowler. As superintendent, how will you handle getting negative feedback on one of your school principals from teachers, staff, students, parents, or community members?
Again, I'm very visible on school sites, and I've been very, very visible at my school site. I think once the information started coming in, I would spend more time digging into the concerns that are coming from the students and the staff and the community. I think at some point when you started finding some fidelity maybe to the concerns, that you would take the administrator aside and look at an improvement plan, or look at different types of resources you could bring in to help that person out. It might be bringing a person in, like I said, it might be an improvement plan. But as a leader of the organization and as a leader of the school, it's very important to take those things very, very serious and to address them as quickly as possible, and to make sometimes some very serious decisions during that point.
All right, thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Do you mind repeating the question,
I'd be
please?
happy to.
Sorry.
If I find it again. How will you, as superintendent, handle getting negative feedback on one of your school principals from teachers, staff, students, parents, or community members?
Well, I think this could happen in a variety of ways. I mean, it happens primarily every day because people don't like a decision that someone makes, or people don't like the way they communicated with them. So my goal always as the leader of the leaders is to have conversations with principals on a daily basis if there's an issue that potentially could be of concern. I think that I would have a conversation, that's where I would start. And then if they need training, which some people do, is provide them with the professional development that we provide our teachers with, and figure out what the holes are to mold that principal to become the best principal that they can be. So I think it starts first with the conversation on the concern. And sometimes what happens is you get the other side or the other view of what happened in that situation, because it could be something, I took that kid's cell phone away and now the mom is very upset and I understand where this is coming from. So you can kind of figure out how to de-escalate that situation so that way you can provide support for the principal.
And Mr. Robbins?
Like my two colleagues here said, you have to find out what exactly the issue and concern is. Then make sure that you listen to certainly the principal's side of it or the administrator's side of it to understand what their perspective was, how their decision-making was made. And then as the superintendent, you're always leadership development program, leadership professional development on whatever it might be. And then if it has to go in a direction where you go to an improvement plan or something like that, try to be as incredibly transparent as you can with that administrator so that they understand what's going on. But really what it comes down to is, do you have a relationship with that administrator? Talk to that administrator, find out what the facts were before you make any decisions. And once you do that, then you can work from there.
Thank you. And Dr. Fowler? Negative feedback. Oh, did you? I apologize. Did you want a mulligan? Nope. Ms. Johnson, next question is directed at you. What makes you a good leader of youth?
I think what makes me a good leader of youth is my passion for them and how excited I get about them. One thing about being around youth is they sometimes will giggle because they laugh at how excited that I get for them. I probably get more excited than their friends do, which to them is a little weird. So we always have a great conversation. I just think that what I do for students is that I show up. I go to activities, I go to events, I engage with students. Like today when we were at the schools, you're talking to the individual students, one-on-one and bending down and speaking to them. At the high school, there's some concern, and they said, hey, can I talk to you for a second? I'm like 100% because they needed someone to talk to at the time. I think it's being open and transparent with them and just making sure that I have a connection with the student. I really do try to high-five students and get to know students, and I exude passion and love for students, and they know that. And so if there's a difficult conversation to have with students, I can have it because they know it's coming from a place of love, and I love it. I love activities, and I love high-fiving and getting kids excited about education and school.
Thank you. Mr. Robbins, what makes you a good leader of youth?
I just think that with the way I believe is that we celebrate, we get so excited when students do well. And for a student, it might just be something as simple as that they showed up on time that day. And like that's great. Like they had been late 19 days in a row or something, and they get there that one day and they're excited about it, and you recognize it. And that makes that kid want to come back more. That's awesome to me. I was on the plane with your team coming back, and they were so excited and so proud of the fact that they finished first with their research project, which is fascinating to me the more I think about it. But that sense of pride that kids have, that you can see that's what my passion is. And I will say this, kids may not know math, but they know if you care. Like they know right away if they have a connection with that adult. And I think that if we can create schools where kids have that connection with those adults and they feel like they're cared and loved for, which is something that I have a passion for, then that makes a difference, because there's nothing better when that kid gets that big smile on his face or her face after they've accomplished something, and then they get recognized by it or about it, and they're called out for it. And that kid could jump over a building at that point. They're so excited. And so that's what drives me as an educator.
Dr. Fowler, what makes you a good leader of youth?
Having 22 years experience in administrative side of it, I look back at the schools that I had the opportunity to serve with and participate in, everything from an assistant principal to an athletic director, up to a principal and now superintendent. And I can tell you from experience that all the schools improved. They showed significant improvement. My current school went from a D to a B. We have the numbers in place this year to be an A school. Our graduation rates are up, our dropout rates are dropping, our attendance is improving. Passion, commitment, dedication, and here's one, standing up in front of your staff sometimes and tell them, I messed that one up. That one's on me. And I think all of these things together have really drawn out the best in me. The leadership side of it is something that I've had to work on and develop over time, but I feel like I've gotten better with time, and I feel like I have a lot more room to grow with. But as far as I'm concerned, I just look back over my 22 years, and I see a lot of success with students, with staff, and with community members and stakeholders involved. Probably one of my proudest things that I've had is not only with the students, but with our staff in my current situation. I've talked 7 of our staff members into going back to college and getting their college degrees to better themselves and do stuff like that. So those are things that make you feel good. But passion is at the top for sure.
Thank you very much. Question number 14 to Mr. Robbins first. What role should a school district play in a community's opioid crises and other addictions?
I think that this is a very difficult and concerning problem that we have, and the school is part of the community. And the school is a gathering point for students, and we have an opportunity every day to educate our students on what the potential harm can be of opioids and how that affects you. And you also have students, you also have to understand too, the students have been impacted by this also. And so that you have to factor that into what you do as a school. Like, how do you have your trauma-informed practices? How do you relay those to the staff that this is going to occur, that this does happen, unfortunately, in every community that's in the United States? It just happens. It's there, it's unfortunate, but that's what we have to deal with. And we have every opportunity every day to either educate the students or understand the trauma that they are going through as part of that, and then help them get through that crisis, because it may not necessarily be the student that has an opioid addiction or concern, but somebody in their family, and we have to be able to address that also, and that comes down to professional development, it comes down to social emotional learning and training and trauma-informed practices with staff, and teaching them and helping them understand where our kids are at and where they're coming from.
Thank you. And Dr. Fowler.
Would you repeat that one last time, please?
What role should a school district play in a community's opioid crises and other addictions?
My corridor that my school's in, it's a 7-mile corridor that runs north to south, and it's 2 miles wide. We are the largest gang-related area in the state. We have the largest alcohol, tobacco, not tobacco, but drug issue in the state. And one of the issues that we deal with is, of course, is the opioid issue. One of my students got arrested last week. I was telling somebody earlier that one of my students got arrested last week. He had 35,000 fentanyl pills on him and $300,000 in cash. So these are issues that we're seeing on a daily basis. So we do a lot of trauma-informed training at our school. We try to do as much as we can with our community. One of the things that we really work on those when we have students in the school itself and in the classrooms, we really try to work on that positive approach and try to get them to understand the significance of what education means to them. And we have a social worker and a counselor on hand, and we spend a lot of time, just spending time one-on-one with students and working with them. One of the biggest issues we have right now, of course, is the fentanyl and the opioid issues that are facing our students. And going back to what you said, I think this COVID issue has just exacerbated this problem across our nation. And we just do as much training on trauma-informed care with our staff and students as we can.
Great. Ms. Johnson, what role should a school district play in a community's opioid crisis and other addictions?
Well, I think it's taking the stigma out of opioid addiction. I think that the biggest myth about opioids is that We're doing, like it's like a heroin, but really opioid. The biggest complaint is actually painkillers that turn into an opioid addiction. So I think that it's making sure that families understand that taking the stigma out of drug abuse helps their trauma within the child. I think that the school district has an opportunity, because we have students in the community, is to educate them in a health class and make sure that it's a part of our curriculum. I think it's working. I had a conversation actually with our fire department and our police deputy chief now, since they're not acting chief, and we were talking about how we can help and support each other, working with different organizations. What are you seeing? What kind of things can we use? And we actually had a great conversation about what we're seeing actually in life in Ketchikan. So I think it's important that we have a conversation with our local fire department and our local police department to make sure that we're actually achieving the problem that we're trying to, because if we're worried about marijuana, but then we're noticing a big uptick in opioids, then that's something that we need to address versus making sure that we're putting all of our information on marijuana. So I think it's also having that community relationship with our local police department to make sure that we are actually doing what we're wanting to do, which is to not let kids get addicted to the drug at the beginning. But I also think it's important that we stomp the stigma. That's kind of what we're known for in Ketchikan, is we have these big rallies, because I think it's really important that people won't get the help they need if they feel like there's a stigma attached to it.
Thank you. First, this question is to Dr. Fowler. Explain your experiences with dealing with different programs, such as special ed, federally mandated programs, career tech, or ELL.
So yes to all of those, and yes, we're dealing with all of them right now. CTE programs for our school are big. We work with multiple, you said CTE, correct? Yep, okay. CTL is big with our school. Our SEI program, which is our ELL program at our school, it's big. What we have done is we've went in and tried to amp up our ability to really address the needs of our students walking in and give them support while they're at school. So we received an $880,000 grant for a reading specialist to help us along with our SEI program, which is our ELL program. And the federally funded programs, we have them all at our school. We have to deal with them on a daily basis. We get audited. My school will get audited this year, and I kid you not when I say this. It'll probably be 17 audits that we go through this year just for our charter school, because it's an alternative school. So all of those programs we are definitely a part of, and I have worked with them for the last 9 years very closely, and we have seen a lot of success with them across the board.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Do you mind repeating the question, please?
I'd be happy to. Explain your experiences in dealing with different programs like special ed, federal programs, career tech, and ELL.
Well, I think that our school district provides a variety of CTE programs, which I just feel like there's a certain population of our students that excels in the CTE program. So I think it's really important that we support our career technical education programs that we have at the Ketchikan High School and at the middle school. I do believe that one of our hot topics when it comes to federal programs was actually working directly with our Title VI group, which is our Native Education Parent Group. I think that we have developed a plan moving forward where they feel heard and they are able to make the decision based upon how many students that we have in our district using the 506 forms. And then they're able to help our Native kids and determine where the money goes for their specific population of people. So I work a lot with different federal programs. I also think our special education, we have a new special education director, and he's really into the MTSS and the social and emotional learning, so we talk on a daily basis. And I just think it's important that all of our students have their space in our schools, and I feel like with our school district, we provide a lot of opportunities for our students.
And Mr. Robbins, your experiences dealing with different programs like special ed, federally mandated programs, Career Tech, and ELL.
When I was in Syracuse, I was in charge of all the federal programs that existed. So Gear Up, Title I, Advanced Placement Initiative. And I actually took over because the job was created because the Office of Civil Rights had come in and said that we did not have enough African American and Hispanic students in our advanced placement in college classes. We only had 125 college or students in college classes that were taking. By the time I left 8 years, we had over 650 kids in college level classes, and we had flipped the percentage from 65-35 to 65-35 the other way, and our achievement scores went up. And we did that through a variety of different programming. We offered advanced placement summer school. So like you think summer school just goes for students who are struggling. We actually offered summer school for students who were entering advanced placement classes or college classes for the first time, because we found out through our data that the first 5 weeks, those students really struggled in those classes. But if they could get through the first 5, 6, 7 weeks, they were fine. They did great. They adjusted to the work. So what we did is we created a summer school for students with their advanced placement or college level class teacher. And then they were great, because what you're trying to get is those kids who are in the middle, who've never taken a college class. And so you're trying to prepare those students to take classes at a higher level, but they can't do that if they don't have support, right? And so that's what we try to do. And that created a whole, and then we added a program called Avid, which is a program that helps students out in the middle. And so if you're going to put kids, if you're going to accelerate kids, you have to support them. And a little bit goes with CTE too. I was in charge of a CTE program that was had cosmetology, which was great because I got free haircuts. It was first responders. We created a first responders program where we had EMT, firefighter, police department, and then we had a welding program, an electrical program. And so what that did is we just incorporated it right into the school. So it was, you didn't have to go anywhere else. You just go down the hallway and you get your hair cut or whatever it might be. But what it did was, is really all of these things is try to create a connection for kids for school, right? Is that they have found something that they have a passion for, and that keeps them in school more because they have a passion for it, that they might want to be a police officer or cut hair or whatever it might be.
Thank you. Next question to Ms. Johnson. In your opinion, how important are the performing arts within a school district?
I think they're an integral part of students. We were visiting the schools today, and we're walking down the hall. It was kind of a weird space that I was in, but bragging about our buildings. And one thing about like all the music programs is we have some phenomenal music teachers. We toured the auditorium, and I touched base about the Theater Ballet, and then also about our plays through First City Players and different plays that we have at our high school. I think it's something that is an integral part of Ketchikan, that we're an arts community, and that there's a certain population of students that excel at that. There's a certain population of students that excel at athletic activity, but the fine arts activity is something that our kids are doing an amazing job in, and we have some amazing instructors and some passionate educators that, like when we go to a play, it feels like it's a, I've never been to a Broadway play, but it feels like, wow, I mean, they are spending a lot of energy and a lot of time, and they use all sorts of students to use. I mean, I always think of our amazing teacher at the middle school, I don't want to say her name, but she'll take someone that maybe can't do anything, and then by the time it's over with, they feel so excited about their abilities to play an instrument, and so, because she has so much passion for it. So I think it's an integral part of the Ketchikan community.
And Mr. Robbins?
I would agree with that. When I was incredibly impressed with all of the art and the music and what was shown off at the schools today. It really stood out as something that is done very well, that the educators are very passionate about it, that the students who are, we actually went into a room with pottery being made, and you could tell the kids right away that they had a pride for what they were doing, how they were working. And like Melissa said, my passion was basketball when I was in school, and I love basketball really more than anything else in the world. But I could not play the tuba at all. But my friends could, and they had a passion for the tuba that they loved, and that's what got them to school. What got me to school was basketball, but what got him to school, my friend, was he loved music. And the more opportunities that we can create for kids to feel, like I keep saying, connected to school, have a passion for, and that they take as much pride in a good tuba, I don't know if you do tuba solos, but whatever, yeah, as I would making a three-pointer to win a basketball game. So I think that that's awesome. I think that's cool. I think that that's great for kids. And the more that we can have connected to kids is better. And I think that Ketchikan has done a very good job of that in a variety of different phases, just not music, but a variety of different other programming that you offer to keep kids connected. So.
And Dr. Fowler.
I'm going to go back to what they've both said so far. I was very impressed today with what I saw in the schools, and the amazing piece to me was, as we walked in, the kids would, and maybe take that, trumpet or trombone or something and play a little bit hard. Man, that passion, that's hard to get kids to do sometimes. And when you have your performing arts the way you guys have them right now, I think it's a very integral part of what takes place. When I was at Taylor Junior High in Mesa, Arizona, the performing arts was the largest budget piece of our budget every year outside of our staffing. And I'm telling you what, we were #1 in the state in choirs and bands and stuff like that. So I think it's a very important piece of the whole child that we try to look at when we are working with our students in their classrooms.
Thank you. We will have one more question. It'll be the 17th, but before we get to it, those of you that are here, you see the pink sheets on the chairs. We would be delighted if you would provide us some feedback on those pink sheets. You can do that on that sheet and turn it into the basket as you leave at the exit. And alternative, if you're watching on KPU TV, or we can also receive some feedback through the email at hr@k21schools.org. And just so you know, we do have a special board meeting scheduled for Thursday evening, and we need time to compile and evaluate your responses and feedback. So if you could get that to us as soon as possible, it would be greatly appreciated.
Which did best on which particular subject, one being the highest, right, Tiffany?
Absolutely. And, we welcome any feedback that you want to provide. If you think a candidate gave an especially good answer on a question of concern to you, you might provide us that feedback. If you think one clearly shined above the others, we welcome that feedback. So we do want to know what you think. So, yes. The request is that we have responses by 6 p.m. tomorrow or Wednesday, so that we have the day on Thursday to compile and evaluate and actually review and pay attention to the feedback that we receive. All right? 17th and final question. I've lost it. Now that you've had an opportunity to tour our city and learn more about our community, what services and facilities are we missing? And it goes first to Mr. Robbins.
I didn't know where we were in the rotation. That's a hard question to answer as somebody who's, just has landed here. But I would say this, the buildings that you have, I saw that were just in tremendous shape. They've done a really good job. The culture that has been created when you walk in is one that academic learning is being done. The students are engaged in the learning process, which is great. Relationships that seem to have been built or have started to be built. I would have to look at, take feedback from the community, talk to the staff, talk to what is already going on, what's in place, what's going to be in place in the next 2, 3, 5 years. But I do know that the one thing you have to do anytime you walk into a new place is just listen to the different constituencies and find out what the needs are, both with the teachers, the staff, the internal that you have, but also the community at large. Talk to those different constituencies, develop a plan, put that in your strategic plan, look at that, and then once you develop that, then you move forward from there. And like I said, I'd hope Melissa had answered that first.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins. And Dr. Fowler, in your visits to our schools and learning more about our community, what services or facilities are we missing?
I'll go back to what Michael said. I think facilities, everything looks good. When I look at services and stuff like that, I'd say probably from my standpoint, from what I walked away from today, is just more data-driven. Digging into the data. I mean, digging into data, and let data be part of your everyday conversations and vocabulary across the schools, your MTSS, your RTI, really implementing those with fidelity and ensuring that you are reaching those students at every level to ensure that we're not leaving any child behind.
And Ms. Johnson, what are we missing?
I would say that we're missing a robust K through 12 social and emotional learning at all our schools, and having a conversation that everyone understands and everybody's getting the help that they need emotionally. I feel like we don't dig into mental health like we should, and I feel like our kids are struggling coming out of COVID, and we just need to do a better job of supporting our students and at where they're at, and we need to have a plan and a strategic plan to guide our students on, how to regulate their feelings, and if they don't feel good about themselves, who do they go to, and if they're having negative thoughts, what the options are for them. So I think that would be something that I think our schools are lacking in, is just that social emotional piece from kindergarten, starting young, through 12th grade, and destigmatizing mental health, that if people need help, they should be able to get it, and that we should give them the opportunity to feel better.
Thank you. It is a minute or two after 8 o'clock, and we said that would be our end time. So with that, we will conclude the questions that we have asked. We certainly want to thank all three candidates for being here and being responsive. And I also want to thank everyone that is here tonight. And again, I want to emphasize how important your feedback is to this process. The school board will be meeting tomorrow. We will be having school board member interviews with all three candidates, one at a time. And those will be streamed out over the borough's webpage, like a borough meeting would be, because it's at White Cliff. It will also be available on KPU TV. We welcome you to view. It is open to the public. If you would like to be there in person for all or a portion, you're certainly welcome to. Tomorrow afternoon, the candidates will be rotating among some stakeholder groups that are important in the district, and we will be getting some feedback from those stakeholder groups, as well as giving the candidates an opportunity to learn some more about the district, and so that's an important part of the process. Then we have a regularly scheduled school board meeting tomorrow evening. Again, the candidates are invited to be there. We'll give them an opportunity to make some brief remarks at the outset of the meeting, and again, that will be a meeting that is open to the public and will also be available online or through KPU TV. And as I mentioned, the school board has a special meeting scheduled for Thursday evening, and it is at that time that we hope to have had an opportunity to evaluate the feedback we get from you and to make a decision on making an offer to one of these finalists as our permanent superintendent. Thank you for participating.